So Eric, what has been the most rewarding thing you've experienced with Helix?
So we were all here when it started. So in 2015, right in the room next door, there was the big ta-da. And at the time we thought it was going to be, 3-4 year effort, with maybe a few updates, and then it's out, and then we do Helix 2, or we do something completely else, HD 8000 or something. And the fact that it's now spawned 11 different hardware SKUs, and it's become this big platform, and the fact that there are 19 of firmware updates, and how many 105 amps, and we started with how many to start?
16, I think. Yeah.
16 amps. Started with 30 some effects, and now we're at 250. No, I don't know. It's been nuts. It's been nuts.
How is that for you over the years, Brandon?
No, I agree. Yeah,
building all this stuff.
Yeah, you look at it like over 10 years, it's super rewarding that, we started with this 16 amps, 30 effects, and we've been able to see something that we put so much work into up front and just keep adding to it and just making it better and making it better. And, we've been able to sustain it, and people have kept supporting it and kept buying it. And just the ability to build this platform and just keep adding more to it and making it better and adding more effects and more amps and learning more and just continually improving has been really rewarding.
And had we known that it was going to be 10 years, how many changes would we have made back then?
Yeah, similarly to me, this is my day job. Everyone has bad days at work, but if I can take a step back and realize, I get to go in here and I get to make cool gear, either to model something or invent something, or, sure, I go to a few meetings, but then I get to make this cool guitar tone. I'm like, this is astounding. I always try to think if my 18-year-old self could see where I was now, they'd be just freaked out. That's so. I told my parents, even when I was younger, 8 or 10, I want to be a musician or a scientist. And now I am kind of a musician scientist with a hyphen in the middle. I kind of feel like a lot of times they leave me alone to just kind of do the science and do the work and build amps and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, well Ben's doing it, so it's probably going to be pretty good. And that's actually quite rewarding. It's not to feel like everyone's questioning my judgment. There's oh yeah.
Well, it helps that it's been pretty much the same team for 10 years too.
We know each other's strengths and weaknesses on the team too. So if you have something that you want to get done, something that you want to get realized, you can go to this person or this person or this person. We all know exactly that we can make that happen.
Yeah.
It's we can pull this off. Well, don't tell Eric, because he's going to come back with 80 new features overnight. Yeah, I know how it works.
Can you think of anything that has surprised you since that time?
The biggest surprise and or delight is probably 3 out of the top 5 of my favorite bands are now using HX or Helix to some extent, and probably 7 out of the top 10, which is nuts. I'll get somebody will ping me on Instagram hey, did you see this? And I'm like, what? My wife's a flight attendant, so I'll pop on a plane and go see them because I missed their LA show or something like that. So.
Ooh, that's lucky.
Yeah. But just seeing, the people that I grew up listening to, all the way from being a little kid, all the way to now, it's really, really satisfying and fun. And then we get to occasionally get backstage and say hi, which is an extra bonus of working here too. So.
Yeah, I think there was a time I saw, it came up on a post where Robert Fripp was using it, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm pretty jaded. I've gotten to meet most of my musical heroes because they're small punk rockers and stuff, but when the weirdo old guard of prog rockers are using the gear that we make, it's this is really cool.
Yeah. Well, and you and I are big friends at Craig Anderton. I remember when he was actually pitching digital mixers back in my retail days, and you would read his big book on circuit design.
Yeah, he had the pedal book, build your own pedals.
And now he's writing the de facto standard how-to guide for Helix, and Craig Anderton's doing this. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic to have the person who unknowingly taught you a lot about building effects to be using your gear as their main piece of equipment now. That's very, very strange. See, I made this because you showed me how.
Yeah. So 10 years later, there have been 19 notable updates, not just little bug fixes. So that's an update with models, features, quality of life improvements, things like that. Is there Is there one particular model or feature that pops in your head that might be something that means a lot to you, or you think, oh, that's what made the biggest difference?
The one that immediately comes to mind for me is our overhaul of our cabinet engine. So, we'd had customers asking for a long time for, we want more, we want better cabinets. And for a long time, we'd been thinking of, we would love to be able to capture more and more cabinets with, the microphone in more and more positions. But it was just a really, just a lot of work to be able to do that. So, we were able to get some additional equipment later on, which made it so we could take something that would have normally taken, someone days and days and days of work to go and capture, the cabinet with a single mic at so many different positions, and make it so it, someone could set it up and automate it. And it would only take a couple of hours to capture a cabinet instead of weeks.
Yeah.
So, how about you?
For me, it was the Space Echo model, because it's this tape delay that has this warbly analog tape. It has 3 playback heads, and they each feed back into the record head at different times. And you can't really model like, oh, if you put in A, you get out B, because there's so much interaction happening, and you can change one. So I had to kind of recreate the entire playback system in a model and kind of hope that what came out was analogous to what was put in and what happens in the real model. And the result was really good. I even, modeled where the tape splice was, where it kind of gets caught and changes the pitch. You can adjust the delay time and do a whole like where the sounds will shift down, and it's like an organic musical instrument more so than just like a way to affect your guitar. And then after that is one day I was in this very studio with my own amplifier that I used for my loud, noisy, abrasive punk rock band, and I was doing some mods to it and tuning it up, and one of my friends here was like, "That sounds awesome. Like, what amp is that?" I'm like, "Oh, this is my amp that I've just been, modifying for the last 10 years." And he's like, "You should model that and put it in Helix." And I'm like, "Really? People want this?" And they're like, "Yeah, this is great." I'm like, "Sure." So I checked, and everyone's fine with me taking the time. And when it came out, people used it for all sorts of things that I just didn't expect it to get used for, like clean jazz guitar, country music, just kind of like straight ahead rock and roll. It was this really versatile amp, and I had just designed it for my own one specific use case. And then once I realized I could do that, I started bringing in my other amps, my Princeton Reverb, the effects pedals that I built, and the KWB. And so I just kind of got to recreate my entire personal guitar setup inside Helix. So I can just kind of carry it in my backpack now.
Some people think it's called the Cartographer because it's sort of worldly, and you can get a world's worth of sounds out of it. Yeah,
I'd never heard that before.
No, yeah.
But no, that's just the name of my old band that I used, that I kind of designed the amp for.
That sounds great. I use it for a clean amp all the time. So
awesome. What about you?
This going back a ways, but probably Snapshots. When Idea Scale kicked off right after Helix, everybody was asking for. There were all sorts of requests, but there were probably 11 or 12 that we realized could be solved with a single feature, and that was Snapshots. And it's a pretty big feature. It does a lot, it encompasses a lot, and it's evolved over the years. But and people had done things like scenes before, but we actually looked at the digital mixer, market when we were looking at this, and what it turned out to be was less of a feature and more of a sort of set of tools, to be able to very quickly change bypass states of all of your things, and also change the any parameter you want, but also spit out MIDI stuff from the command center. So it was this big thing of tools, and what turned out, what we thought was pretty straightforward, ended up evolving over time, and people started using it, and in some ways abusing Snapshots to make it do things that we didn't even think we could do. So, for example, once they learned that they could assign stomp switches per snapshot, they realized, oh, I can set up a sequence of snapshots from a single foot switch, and I can just sequence through all of the sections of my song, and they still have access to all of their stomps on there as well. And when I first saw the YouTube video, I can't remember who did it first, but I'm like, that's awesome. I didn't even know Snapshots could do that. But the fact that we built this set of tools, and the fact that now like 3 or 4 other companies do it exactly the way we do it, means that we must have done it right.
Yeah.
So
It's a huge improvement to workflows. You know, something where you would have taken hundreds of presets that were almost exactly the same from one another and just build them up next to one another. And now it's just, you know, a handful of presets and
so
all snapshots.
was it a preset per song and then a snapshot per section?
Yep. Yeah, just, you know, constantly looking for ways that we can improve the sound and just, you know, give people
little tweaks that they may not be aware of that we do, that we don't tell them about, and then with all the clever scripting to make them not screw up their presets. And
Yep. Almost every single update has some sound improvement behind the scenes that you may not know
but
about.
sound design has gotten better at modeling too.
Well,
because we're learning and we get feedback from users and we're constantly figuring out new ways to listen to things.
I mean, the first amp models were made probably close to 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And vintage amps can be weird. You know, every amp was made from different eras and with different parts and by different engineers, and every company has its own philosophy of how they're going to make an amp. So every time you take an amp apart, every amp is going to present some new challenge and something you hadn't seen before, and every time we deal with that, we learn something new. So we get a little bit better. So, you know, as we've gone on and on, people have given me feedback as well that says, oh, these new amp models, they sound really good. And it makes me feel great because it is all these little small lessons that we've learned along the way. And with these new models, like, oh, we've fixed this, we made this sound better. We took a little odd sound out there. We've seen that circuit before. That was an amp we did 5 years ago. So we should be able to model this no problem. We're just always constantly improving, always trying to make the amp model sound better, always looking for new ways to do it more efficiently and do it with, you know, sound and joy and fun and accuracy and just make it an awesome experience.
And if you can get people to actually play more, that's the number one thing.
Yeah, you just wanted to, you know, yeah, sure they can do is hit a Snapshot button and change 52 things behind the scenes, but
Who cares if it doesn't sound great, and who cares if it isn't fun to play?
Yeah, we just want you to hit a big loud chord and be like, oh yeah, this is amazing, you know?
Yep.